On the day the imperial consort entered the palace, the regent prince took his own life in his study. He had hated me to the core. Yet his final letter was filled with his profound, undying love for me, the Empress. The news sent shockwaves through the court and the realm. Civil and military officials jointly petitioned to depose the Empress, seeking to nail me to the pillar of infidelity. Finally, my infant son, still in swaddling clothes, was carried to the consort's palace. She ascended to the throne as Empress, while my entire family was executed and our bodies exposed in the wilderness. Yet clearly, she was the one the regent prince had longed for but could never have. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the day the consort entered the palace, when the regent prince once more took his own life for love. Attempting to frame me, I bowed gracefully before the emperor in the hall. Your Majesty, I humbly request permission to exhume my body for examination. I died by the hand of my beloved. Though my heart burned with resentment, I was powerless to resist. Xia Xian's cold, pale fingers gripped the wine cup. His expression was indifferent, his icy gaze sweeping over me as if I were a lifeless object. Such a look left me utterly disheartened. My life could be taken with just one cup of poison from Xia Xian's hand. But I refused to accept it. I refused to die unjustly like this. So, stubbornly, I asked him, Xian, why won't you believe me? You're condemning me to death based solely on the one-sided words of the entire court. His icy gaze pierced me deeply. A bitter smile touched my lips as hot tears instantly streamed down my face. You would execute me with your own hand based solely on a letter from Regent Prince Guyu? Xia Xian and I had known each other for 7 years. I had accompanied him from a prince with no support to a crown prince wielding immense power. Now, Xia Xian is the most exalted emperor, while I have become the discarded wife who bore him an imperial heir. You and Guyu disregarded my existence and committed such shameful acts. How can I trust you? Where is the majesty of the Son of Heaven? Xia Xian seized my jaw and forced the poisoned wine into my mouth. The fiery, bitter poison seared through my body. The agony tore me apart, leaving me curled on the floor. Sweet salty blood trickled from my lips as my body drained of strength. The sharp pain brought a moment of clarity, perhaps a final burst of energy. I lay on the ground, laughing through tears, until my strength vanished. Everything before my eyes flashed by like a passing parade. I choked out, Mother. Zhao Zhao hurts so much. This life, pain piercing my heart, like being torn apart by 1,000 knives. 7 years of deep devotion and unwavering loyalty. I stood by him through the bloody turmoil of the imperial court, ascended to the position of empress, risked my life to bear him princesses and princes. The ultimate mistake, pain searing my very bones. If heaven grants me a second chance, I will tear them all to pieces. When I opened my eyes again, the voice of my personal maid, Bai Shuang, reached my ears. Your Majesty has just emerged from confinement and is still weak. Hurry and instruct the imperial kitchen to prepare nourishing dishes. The moment I looked at Bai Shuang, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Your Highness, why do you weep? In my past life, when disaster struck, Bai Shuang knelt on the ground, banging her head against the floor to plead for mercy on my behalf. She even bled profusely from her forehead. Yet she repeatedly assured Xia Xian that Guyu and I had never been intimate. But Xia Xian refused to believe her, mercilessly sentencing her to death. I quickly wiped away my tears and clutched Bai Shuang tightly, demanding answers. I never imagined I'd return to the very day Chu Weiyue entered the palace as a consort and Guyu took his own life for love. Guyu deeply loved my cousin, Chu Weiyue. Yet the path the Chu family had charted for her was to seduce Xia Xian and become a consort. She possessed a lively, charming beauty, her features carrying a hint of the grace I had in my youth. During my pregnancy, when I was too weak to manage the imperial harem, she feigned a visit to the grand consort. In the imperial garden, she danced to lure butterflies, captivating Xie Xian's gaze. Ultimately, disregarding my imminent childbirth, he issued an imperial edict appointing Chu Weiyue as imperial consort, selecting an auspicious day for her entry into the palace. And that auspicious day was today. Guyu had long harbored resentment towards Xie Xian and my father, who had jointly stripped him of his power years ago. Now, his beloved was summoned to the palace. Unable to take revenge on the emperor, he doubled his hatred and redirected it toward me. Thus, before taking his own life, he deliberately left behind a suicide note. Its pages were filled with his undying love for me, the Empress. His death immediately prompted the Chu family to stir the pot from behind the scenes. They incited civil and military officials to petition for my dethronement, nailing me to the pillar of infidelity. But at this very hour, their scheme remains unfinished, and Guyu has yet to take his own life. Since they so desperately want to die, this lifetime, I shall personally see them off. Before my marriage, Mother, worried I'd be powerless in the palace, secretly spent a fortune training several shadow guards for me. In my past life, events unfolded too swiftly. Before I could signal my guards, the emperor executed me for alleged infidelity. Bai Shuang, deliver this prescription to Lin Feng immediately. From childhood, I studied medicine, following the divine physician through every street and alley. The lovesick Guyu was willing to die to help Chu Weiyue eliminate me as an obstacle. Then this potion of feigned death would be my first grand gift to them. To welcome the imperial consort, Xie Xian had lanterns she favored hung along the palace path. When Chu Weiyue came to Fuwan Palace to pay her respects, her eyes were filled with bashful shyness, hiding the triumphant glow between her brows. She bowed sideways. This humble consort greets Her Majesty the Empress. Her eyes held pools of autumn water, beautiful and gentle. Yet gentle waters, drop by drop, pierce the heart. Otherwise, how could a maiden confined to her boudoir conceive such a poisonous scheme to have Guyu die for her, paving her path? I regarded her expressionless, a faint smile curling my lips. Sisters need not observe such formalities. Chu Weiyue rose and spoke immediately. Sister, now that you've become the revered empress, it's pitiful for brother Guyu. He's endured 7 long years alone in the mansion, waiting for you. Her words were thick with implication. The servants and maids in my palace immediately bowed their heads in unison. A single glance from me signaled Bai Shuang. She immediately stepped forward, delivering 2 sharp slaps to the imperial consort's face before shouting, "How dare you, imperial consort! Such disregard for protocol! May I ask who your tutor was?" Stunned by the blows, Chu Weiyue knew that rank had its privileges. Suppressing a smirk, she feigned hurt, eyes brimming with tears, and hastily knelt in apology. Only I knew she'd done this deliberately. She'd first planted the seed among the palace staff to frame me for an affair with Guyu. That very night, news of Guyu's suicide spread throughout the palace. Rumors swirled throughout the harem. Seated in shadow, sipping tea alone, I overheard the palace maids whispering. Rumor has it the imperial consort is the empress's own cousin. She knows the empress's childhood secrets better than anyone. I've heard it too, the regent prince waited 7 long years for the empress. They've been secretly involved all along. If that's true, the regent prince is truly a man of unparalleled virtue. To remain unmarried to this day, what profound devotion. Rumors spread like invisible blades, capable of killing. Chu Weiyue was certain the emperor would misunderstand me. After all, Guyu and I were childhood sweethearts, acquainted since our youth, but she never imagined this time I had come prepared. The next morning, before dawn had fully broken, Bai Shuang rushed to me in panic. Your Highness, terrible news. I calmly arranged my golden hairpin, securing it in my bun. Your Highness, last night the regent prince suddenly took his own life. Upon hearing the news, the civil and military officials jointly petitioned to depose the empress during this morning's court session. Now, His Majesty summons you to the court to defend yourself. I rose to my feet, my fingers gently brushing Bai Shuang's cheek as I smiled softly. Schwanger, remember, no matter the outcome, do not plead for me. In this battle, I must not only protect myself, but also expose the true faces of the imperial consort and the regent prince. By Shuang and I entered the court together. We met the contemptuous stares of the civil and military officials. Their gazes were like icy blades, both vicious and cold. As I passed each of them, I could read their insults in their eyes. I stood in the center of the hall, my gaze fixed upon the throne. Upon Xie Xian, the emperor himself. Your humble servant greets your majesty, Xie Xian. Flung the suicide note down. He declared, Empress, do you know your crime? The letter scattered across the floor, its heart-wrenching words pouring out his longing for me, lamenting our entangled, bittersweet missed opportunities. But these words were not for me, they were for the Chu Weiwei in his heart. In the hall, Minister of Rights Li, a devotee of Songming Neo-Confucianism, presented himself, Your Majesty. The regent prince has sealed his loyalty with death, proof of his clandestine affair with the empress. This woman must not be spared. Such a demoness brings shame upon the nation's fortune. Chu Weiyue's father, the chancellor, followed immediately. Your Majesty, the empress is the mother of the nation. How can she be an unfaithful woman who commits adultery and corrupts morals? In this humble servant's opinion, she should be immediately deposed. Otherwise, if the common people all learn of this, how can your Majesty retain any dignity? The regent's suicide holds irrefutable proof. Even my father, Grand Tutor, who in his youth often outdebated scholars, now past 50, could find no loophole to defend her. In the court chamber, the man who had lived a life of integrity and principle glanced at me. Then, trembling, he stepped forward into the hall, tears streaming down his aged face. Your Majesty, I beg to resign my post and return to my fields. I implore you to show mercy, spare my daughter's life, and confine her to the cold palace. Just as in my past life, after my father intervened. Xie Xian hesitated. My father had been his teacher in the past. Without his and his disciples' unwavering support, the man now on the imperial throne would never have been him. A son of a concubine. The hall fell instantly silent. Just then, the ministers standing behind Chancellor Chu suddenly knelt in unison, shouting in unison, The regent prince is dead. We beseech your majesty to depose the empress and remove the young prince from the Phoenix Palace. Gazing at my father's aged back, I clenched my fists, a sharp pang of pain piercing my heart. So when Xie Xian narrowed his eyes, his icy gaze once more fixed upon me, I remained unflinching, curtsying gracefully before him. Your Majesty, I humbly request permission to open the coffin and conduct an autopsy. The court ministers gasped in shock. Minister Li, who served under Chancellor Chu, immediately stepped forward to plead. This must not be done. The regent prince passed away only recently, his body is still warm. The empress is showing grave disrespect to the deceased. Opening the coffin for an autopsy is absolutely forbidden. With that, Chancellor Chu immediately knelt on one knee and bowed his head in the center of the hall. Your Majesty, I implore you to reconsider. Xie Xian's icy gaze swept over me, his eyes blazing with fury. All because I had shamed him, shattered the image of the nation's mother as gentle and virtuous. I bowed once more before Xie Xian. Your Majesty, as the empress and your lawful wife, I implore you to permit the exhumation. Compared to Xie Xian's pride, what does sacrificing a regent amount to? The emperor understands better than anyone what truly matters. Seeing my unwavering resolve, Gu Yu's body was swiftly carried into the hall. His face was deathly pale, eyes tightly shut. Any discerning eye could tell he was utterly lifeless. His body cold and stiff. Court officials murmured in confusion, but they didn't know this was a specially adjusted dose of my fake death potion. In 6 hours, he would gradually regain vitality. So, when the emperor's personal physician arrived at the scene, after briefly taking his pulse, the physician's expression instantly turned grim. Your Majesty, he reported, the regent prince ingested the forbidden herb jiukao from the previous dynasty. creating this illusion of death by poisoning. What followed left the ministers gasping in shock. Even Xian was startled. The physician inserted a silver needle, and Gu Yu's eyes snapped open. He struggled to sit up, his gaze dazed as he scanned the assembly in the grand hall. The moment he spotted Xian, his body reacted instinctively. He immediately rose to his feet and bowed. "Your humble servant pays homage to your majesty." Xian, quick to react, stiffened and commanded in a deep voice. "How dare you? You dared to feign death to deceive the sovereign. Gu Yu. What are your intentions?" These words jolted Gu Yu back to reality. The haze in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by a whirlwind of astonishment, shock, and bewilderment. He murmured uncontrollably, I'm not dead?" I curved my lips into a faint smile. Before Xian could speak, I had already stepped before Gu Yu. Without a word, I delivered a sharp slap across his face. Then, I flung the suicide note he had written himself at him. "Regent Prince, why did you deliberately fake your death to ruin this palace's reputation? I have been married to His Majesty for 7 years and have never wavered in my devotion. In my eyes, there has always been only His Majesty. Yet you filled your suicide note with schemes against me. What are your intentions?" Gu Yu's face instantly drained of color, cold sweat beading on his forehead. "I am the Empress, Xian's rightfully wedded wife. Should Gu Yu dare to defy his superiors after regaining consciousness, poisoning himself would be the least of his punishments." Terrified, he clattered to his knees and frantically kowtowed before the emperor. "Your Majesty, this humble servant has never harbored improper thoughts toward Her Majesty. Her Majesty embodies the motherly grace of the realm. This servant harbors only reverence and admiration for Her Majesty. This letter makes no mention of love whatsoever. It must be a deliberate misinterpretation by someone seeking to frame the servant. Your Majesty, please discern the truth. This servant is innocent," he wrote with subtlety. The letter indeed contained no explicit words of love, yet the sentiment was hidden within. Gu Yu bowed his head once more, then raised his voice. "Though I knew Her Majesty in our youth, these past 7 years, apart from court banquets, this humble servant has never met Her Majesty privately. We have not even exchanged letters. Your Majesty, if you do not believe me, surely you trust Her Majesty?" Gu Yu's solemn and earnest confession made Xian reluctant to press the matter further in the court. On the surface, all that mattered was proving the Empress's innocence. But how could he let Gu Yu off so easily? Xian's expression turned icy as he ordered a eunuch to draft an imperial decree on the spot. Gu Yu was stripped of his court positions, out of respect for his father's past merits. Leniency was shown, he was temporarily demoted to the rank of prince. All remaining matters would await further investigation by the Ministry of Justice. Upon hearing the decree, Gu Yu immediately knelt to express his gratitude. Xian was in a foul mood. With no further major matters to discuss, he dismissed the court. The ministers quickly withdrew like a receding tide. Except for Gu Yu, who had lain in a coffin all night and moved slowly, his legs unsteady. Yet, just as he was about to step out of the hall, a jade pendant suddenly fell from his waist. The instant the pendant dropped, my heart clenched, and I abruptly looked up at Xian seated on the dais. He had already risen, his expression cold as he stared at me. Impossible! How could my personal jade pendant be on him? Well done, Chu Weiyue. She had hidden a backup plan all along. This jade pendant was personally designed by my elder brother and meticulously carved by artisans as a wedding gift to me. At the time, Chu Weiyue was still friendly with me. She borrowed the pendant to admire it, accidentally kept it overnight, and returned it the next day. I had worn it close to my body all these years. Everyone close to me knew it was my jade pendant, let alone Xian. I never imagined that back then, Chu Weiyue had already concealed her hidden blade. Xia Xian erupted in fury. Empress! How long do you intend to keep up this charade? I immediately knelt. My voice neither humble nor arrogant. Your Majesty sees clearly, this is not my jade pendant. This pendant is a deliberate imitation of mine. Even when I placed both pendants side by side for comparison, Xia Xian refused to believe me. He even suspected that Gu Yu and I had exchanged tokens. You still refuse to admit it now. Xia Xian's rage boiled over, his eyes blazing with fury as he declared. As the head of the 6 palaces, the Empress has never set an example. Instead, she grows ever more insolent and disrespectful. Consort Chu, however, is dignified and virtuous, far surpassing you. If you cannot set an example within the harem, let Consort Chu assist in managing its affairs. The moment Consort Chu entered the palace, she began stripping away the Empress's authority. This proves just how despised and hollow my title as Empress truly is. The instant Gu Yu was dragged away, I caught the fleeting smile on his lips. He secretly framed me, leading to my power being stripped. He thought he'd temporarily escaped punishment. Little did he know, I would never let him off the hook. Once the 3 months are up, the fake death potion within him will no longer suppress the toxins and will completely fail. When the poison takes full effect, that agony of wanting to die but unable to. Gu Yu, you'd better savor it, don't dare breathe your last too soon. News from the former court brought instant joy to Chu Weiyue's face. She eagerly accepted the authority Xia Xian had granted her. Delighted, she believed her plan had succeeded, that I was utterly subdued by her. Chu Weiyue was immediately crowned imperial consort upon entering the palace, now wielding power over the 6 palaces. Everyone fawned over her, elevating her to the heavens. She believed her fortune had finally arrived. By dusk, she had her personal maid prepare her for the evening, awaiting Xia Xian's arrival. Yet that night, Xia Xian didn't spend the night in her palace at all. Instead, he casually flipped open the tablet of a lowly concubine. The emperor's action felt like a slap across the face to Chu Weiyue, leaving her utterly humiliated. This enraged Chu Weiyue beyond measure. She cried out, demanding to storm out of her chambers to confront Xia Xian, only to be held back by her dowry maid, who pleaded with her, threatening suicide. Then, she slapped the dowry maid more than a dozen times before her fury was temporarily quelled. That night, consumed by hatred for me, Chu Weiyue fell asleep and dreamt a vivid, unnervingly real dream. She dreamt the emperor passed away, and she guided his son to the throne. She ruled from behind the curtain, becoming the revered Empress Dowager. In the dream, standing before the dragon throne, she spoke for the frail young emperor to his ministers. Rise, my lords. The next morning, Chu Weiyue shed her anger from the previous day. Her fighting spirit reignited. Her gaze toward Fenghuan Palace seemed laced with venom, as if everything that belonged to me was rightfully hers. She believed herself destined to be Empress Dowager. Little did she know, every word she uttered in her sleep last night had been relayed to me by the second-class palace maid on night duty. Several days later, dressed in a Western region dance gown, Chu Weiyue sat bathed in moonlight, strumming her pipa and singing a ballad. She staged a chance encounter with Xia Xian in the imperial garden, successfully piquing his interest. Convinced she would bear an imperial heir, she openly challenged me. Thus, she clung to Xia Xian ever more persistently, employing every art to entwine herself in his affection. Yet, over a month had passed since her entry into the palace. In the last fortnight, she had served him nightly, yet still bore no child. Now, Chu Weiyue could no longer sit idly by, daring not approach the grand censor. She could only turn once more to the person she trusted most outside the palace walls. Gu Yu. She dispatched a message to the regent prince's residence. She requested Guyu to disguise himself and come swiftly to the palace for a meeting during the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. Upon seeing Guyu, Chu Weiyue could no longer wait. She voiced her plea. "Brother Guyu, I am with His Majesty nightly, yet I have not conceived." Her pitiful gaze fixed on him as she whispered, "I wish to conceive an imperial heir soon, to secure my place within the palace. I've heard of a distant sect called Chaoyun, whose medical master possesses extraordinary healing skills, even said to revive the dead. Would you journey there for me to seek a fertility elixir?" Guyu had once attempted suicide for her sake. How much less so for something as trivial as procuring medicine? Guyu agreed without hesitation. "I learned of this matter through a letter sent by the medical master via carrier pigeon. But they didn't know I was the sole disciple of the reclusive elder of the Chaoyun sect." The medical master recognized Guyu as my childhood companion and revealed the entire affair to me. "You want fertility medicine, do you? Fine. I'll personally craft a custom formula for Chu Weiyue. Send her and Guyu straight to hell together." Ever since Chu Weiyue began taking the fertility potion daily, her complexion improved noticeably. Her skin glowed rosy and radiant, her delicate, pretty face often breaking into smiles. Xia Xian frequently selected her name, retiring to her palace for the night. Gradually, relying on her youthful beauty, Chu Weiyue became the most favored imperial consort in the harem. She and Xia Xian spent their nights under the moonlight, deeply in love. For a full month, Chu Weiyue basked in unending favor, envied by all the other consorts. She even boasted that she would surely bear a prince. Sure enough, soon, joyful news spread through Chu Weiyue's palace. Upon hearing the news from outside, Bai Shuang's tears fell instantly. "Your Highness, no one in the palace regards you with respect anymore. Instead, everyone reveres the imperial consort. Even His Majesty frequently visits her chambers. If she bears a prince, our eldest prince's position." Bai Shuang's eyes brimmed with worry, fearing I would lose favor and even have the empress's position snatched away. I remained utterly unconcerned, instead urging her to sit down and share tea with me. "When the drama unfolds in Yuewei Palace, my treasured 10 tales of Snow Peak tea will be just enough to finish." The first month of Chu Weiyue's pregnancy, the Imperial Astronomical Bureau declared the prince within her womb would greatly benefit the nation's fortune. Destined for greatness. This news filled even Xia Xian with boundless joy. Luxurious treasures flowed into her palace like water, as if he feared Chu Weiyue could never have enough. Gradually, buoyed by the dragon's offspring within her and Xia Xian's adoration, Chu Weiyue grew arrogant. She grew arrogant from her favored status. That day, when we met in the imperial garden, her eyes held nothing but scorn. "Your Majesty, you are no longer young, while His Majesty and I are still in the prime of our lives. I kindly remind you to take care of your health, lest I grow weary of waiting." I couldn't be bothered to respond and turned to leave. At 25, I was indeed no longer young in this imperial harem. I had already borne him a son and a daughter, but all I needed to ensure was their status as legitimate heirs. That was enough. For what I ever cared about was never mere favor, but positions of greater power and challenge. Half a month later, the Imperial Academy held its 6 arts competition. This biennial event drew the emperor and court officials straight from their morning audiences. Concubines were required to take their seats punctually. Xia Xian and I sat in the grand hall. Chu Weiyue occupied the emperor's side, radiating the aura of a favored consort. Seated high above, we could not discern the scene below. Throughout the event, only one small figure stood out, clad in brocade robes with a high ponytail, emerging victorious. The judge continuously presented the champion's credentials upward. The winner was a 5-year-old child. Court ministers and ladies alike showered praise. "Whose young master is this? So remarkably gifted? Such excellence in a child, truly the future hope of our dynasty." I tugged at the corners of my lips, letting out a soft smile. My gaze settled on her, unable to look away, until Xian summoned the top 3 winners to the viewing platform to receive their rewards. The exquisitely featured little girl dashed onto the platform, her eyes fixed directly on me, sparkling with amusement. The academy headmaster, who had come to present the awards, paled visibly upon seeing her. He immediately knelt. "Your humble servant greets the Long Princess." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Eyes met in stunned silence. The top prize winner was none other than the Long Princess, who never appeared in public. The Long Princess's brilliance is a blessing bestowed by His Majesty and Her Majesty the Empress. Upon learning the sensation-causing top scholar was the eldest princess, Chu Weiyue's expression abruptly changed. She placed a hand on her slightly rounded belly, her gaze turning hostile as it fixed on me. She likely never imagined my daughter would be such a rare prodigy. Back then, Xian had blamed me for bearing a princess instead of a prince as my firstborn. He had only glanced at our daughter, Yunhe, briefly after her birth. From that day on, he never once inquired about her. For 5 long years, Yunhe was raised solely by my own hands. Now, Yunhe had brought honor to Xian, instantly lighting his face with joy and filling his eyes with pride. He rose, his gaze fixed on the poised and composed Yunhe on the viewing platform. "Truly worthy of being my imperial child, she takes after me in every way." The ministers immediately showered him with flattery. This only deepened Xian's already high spirits. With a sweeping gesture, he decreed Yunhe's title, Yongning. A banquet would be held tonight in the Golden Hall to celebrate Yongning. The ministers immediately knelt to pay homage. "Your Majesty's wisdom blesses the realm." A hint of amusement flickered in Xian's icy eyes. He beckoned to Yunhe, motioning for her to approach. But before she could reach him, darkness engulfed Xian's vision, and he collapsed instantly. His sudden fainting sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Your Majesty! Quick! Summon the imperial physician." Chaos erupted on the scene. No one understood why Xian, who had been perfectly fine moments ago, had suddenly collapsed. Only I knew it was the initial manifestation of poisoning symptoms. This was merely the beginning. The imperial physician examined Xian. He merely stated the emperor had recently been suffering from excessive fatigue, failing to identify the root cause. Xian showed no other symptoms and paid it no mind. Now that Chu Weiyue tended to Xian, he had no need for me. As I exited with the imperial physician, I happened upon a guard from Gu Yu's retinue. He arrived in a state of frantic urgency. Upon seeing me, he immediately composed his flustered expression and bowed respectfully. I feigned ignorance. "What has happened? Why such panic?" Prince Gu recently fell gravely ill. He suffers excruciating headaches and frequent nausea and vomiting. The physician's prescriptions have proven utterly ineffective. Now Prince Gu lies bedridden, unable to swallow food. We humbly request Physician Wei to visit the prince's residence. Judging by the timing, it was indeed the hour when Gu Yu's symptoms would manifest. Little did he know that nausea and vomiting were merely the beginning. The poison he had ingested would only intensify his agony as time passed. I pretended to urge Imperial Physician Wei to hurry and treat Gu Yu. His death was imminent, and I desired his demise more than anyone. Meanwhile, Xian remained immersed in Chu Weiyue's passionate affection. Until, 2 months later, her abdomen began to swell. The fetus within the imperial consort's womb seemed to grow at an extraordinary pace. Her belly appeared as prominent as that of a woman 3 or 4 months along. Chu Weiyue paid it no mind, instead growing ever more elated. She boasted triumphantly to Xian, "Your Majesty, this is because the child within the servant's womb is the Prince of Blessings. He must have inherited your..." Even the imperial physician confirmed all was well, her pulse steady, everything normal. This emboldened Chu Weiyue further, and she practically strutted through the harem. That day, Yunhee prepared peach blossom cakes in the imperial kitchen, intending to serve them to Xia Xian. Midway, Chu Weiyue intercepted her. Her eyes darted, and she immediately ordered her attendants to block Yunhee's path. "Stop!" Yunhee frowned, her gaze sweeping over Chu Weiyue. A fleeting look of disgust crossed her small face. Since becoming pregnant, Chu Weiyue's appetite had grown voracious. She couldn't resist eating more to supplement her nutrition. Spotting the freshly baked, fragrant peach blossom cakes, Chu Weiyue couldn't help but reach out. Her hand moved toward the plate of cakes. But Yunhee dodged it. "You're not allowed to eat them." Yunhee was still just a child. Speaking bluntly and without guile. Chu Weiyue snorted derisively, her face brimming with disdain. "Is there any dish in this entire palace that this princess cannot eat? Tell me, why should I be denied?" Yunhe clutched the peach blossom cakes tightly, unwilling to let her hard work be snatched away. She protested loudly. "These are the peach blossom cakes I made personally for Father Emperor. He hasn't tasted them yet, how dare you try them first?" Hearing these were cookies meant for Xia Xian, Chu Weiyue's resentment flared, making her even more eager to taste them. She pursed her lips and murmured in a low voice, "Who would have thought a princess so young could be so vicious? Showing no respect even for elders? I carry His Majesty's royal air within me, what harm could a peach blossom cookie do?" Chu Weiyue shot a glance at her maidservant. Taking advantage of their numbers, the maidservant seized Yunhee and snatched the tray from her hands without hesitation. "This is for my father." Chu Weiyue snorted coldly, lecturing her. "The emperor's possessions are mine. Do you understand?" With that, she pinched a peach blossom pastry and brought it to her mouth. But just as it touched her lips, Chu Weiyue's abdomen suddenly twisted in agony. Seeing this, she quickly took a bite before flinging the pastry to the floor. By now, cold sweat beaded on her forehead as her entire body shook. "Your Highness!" Amid the maidservant's repeated cries of concern, bright red blood began flowing from Chu Weiyue's legs. Feeling a wave of warm wetness, Chu Weiyue's eyes widened in terror. "The imperial physician!" she cried in disbelief. "Quick! Summon the imperial physician." Upon learning of this, I rushed to Yue Palace. When I arrived, Chu Weiyue was deathly pale, weeping to Xia Xian. "Your Majesty, I merely ate a peach blossom pastry from Yongning, and it caused me to lose my child." Tears fell from her eyes, filled with sorrow and desolation. She must have been instructed by the Empress to deliberately harm my royal child. I hurried inside and embraced Yunhe. Yunhe was also deeply shaken. Seeing me, she stubbornly pressed her lips together, her eyes instantly reddening. "Mother, I didn't." Chu Weiyue refused to listen to Yunhe's explanation, insisting Yunhe had harmed her. "Your Majesty, you must vindicate me." Xia Xian's expression was dark and fierce, his eyes blazing with unhidden rage as he glared coldly at Yunhe, fearing it would leave Yunhe traumatized. I reached out and covered her eyes. "Your Majesty, Yongning is still so young. How could she commit such a vicious act? Do not listen to Sister Chu's one-sided account. Hear what the imperial physician has to say." Imperial physician Wei was Xia Xian's trusted confidant. Whatever he said, Xia Xian would surely heed. Imperial physician Wei approached, trembling with fear. He sighed, his eyes filled with hesitation. Seeing this, Xia Xian impatiently urged, "If you cannot reach a conclusion today, you shall be expelled from the Imperial Medical Bureau immediately." Dr. Wei hastily knelt. His voice trembled as he exclaimed, "Your Majesty, I dare speak the truth. The noble consort has suffered 2 miscarriages. It is unlikely she can conceive again. Losing this pregnancy is, in fact, quite understandable." The words fell, and the entire Yue Palace fell silent. Xia Xian's face darkened further. Chu Weiyue was utterly thrown into panic. She pushed herself up from Xia Xian's embrace, her expression hardening as she shouted angrily. What nonsense are you spouting? I am still young, how could I have miscarried? Chu Weiyue's face was deathly pale as she desperately reached for Xia Xian's hand. He easily dodged her grasp, refusing to let her touch him. Dr. Wei. Before entering the palace, I was an unmarried maiden. How could I possibly commit such a vile act as inducing a miscarriage? Chu Weiyue began pressuring him. Speak! Who instructed you to say this? Who seeks to harm me? Hearing this, Dr. Wei knelt on the ground, dared not rise, dared not lift his head. Your Majesty, every word spoken by this humble servant is truth, without the slightest falsehood. The imperial consort suffered a pregnancy in her youth, which damaged her womb and made it impossible to carry the prince to term. These words undoubtedly pushed Chu Weiyue toward a capital offense. Chu Weiyue had long since lost her composure. Her eyes filled with panic as she scanned the hall, her gaze finally settling on me. It was you! It must have been you! You ordered the imperial physician to poison me, to frame the prince and protect Yongning. You'll stop at nothing. I picked up the peach blossom pastry Chu Weiyue had bitten into and had the physician examine it. After his inspection, he reported again. Your Majesty, Princess Yongning truly did not poison the peach blossom pastry. Therefore, Chu Weiyue alone bears responsibility for this entire affair. Xia Xian, whose face had remained grim throughout, clenched his fists. He slammed his fist onto the tabletop, his icy gaze sweeping over Chu Weiyue. No one understood that look better than I did. At this very moment, in Xia Xian's heart, she was nothing but a worthless, dead object. Empress Consort Chu, for corrupting the imperial harem, your crime demands no mercy. Effective immediately, you are banished to the cold palace. At the emperor's command, none dared to intercede. Chu Weiyue, who had been shouting moments before, suddenly deflated. She collapsed onto the floor, nearly broken, her pale face streaked with tears of despair. She cried out pitifully, Your Majesty! Your Majesty! I am being falsely accused. I have never been with another man. Never conceived before. This is my first child with your Majesty. Xia Xian's gaze fell upon her, utterly cold. Not a trace of his former tenderness remained in his eyes, only utter indifference. The imperial family is the most heartless of all. Even the young and beautiful Chu Weiyue was no exception. She was indeed wronged. But so what? She dared to destroy my entire family, steal my royal heir, and frame my own daughter. This is the fate she deserves. Chu Weiyue crawled forward on her knees in utter despair, clutching Xia Xian's leg tightly. Your Majesty, we shared days of deep affection. How could you not know what kind of person Weiyue truly is? I smiled faintly, mocking her naivety. Playing the emotional card now only added fuel to the fire. Xia Xian flew into a rage, kicking her hard in the abdomen. The pain made cold sweat break out on Chu Weiyue's forehead. She curled up on the floor, unable to stand. Finally, servants dragged her out of the bedchamber and into the desolate, bleak cold palace. Xia Xian was deeply distressed by her fate and avoided the harem for a long time. I secretly calculated the time, waiting and waiting until I finally received the uplifting news. Bai Shuang hurried over to report. Your Highness, Prince Gu passed away in the dead of night yesterday. Upon hearing this, His Majesty ordered Prince Gu's body to be taken to the Imperial Medical Institute for an autopsy. I set down my golden hairpin and lifted my gaze to the figure reflected in the brass mirror. In a daze, it seemed as though I was seeing my former self, utterly alone and helpless. A wave of relief washed over me, the knot in my chest slowly unraveling. Having learned from the previous incident, Xia Xian grew increasingly cautious. Come with me to see. I proceeded to the Imperial Medical Bureau. The moment the white cloth was lifted, Gu Yu's withered, yellowed corpse appeared before me. Everyone was horrified by the gruesome state of his death. Only in my eyes did a flicker of light appear. My reaction was swift. The next second, I began my act, pretending to be too frightened to look. Xiaxian reached out and pulled me into his embrace, speaking softly. "Are you afraid?" "Afraid? How could I be afraid of someone I killed with my own hands?" After examining the body, Physician Wei stepped forward to report. "Your Majesty, the prince has passed away. Please compose yourself." Xiaxian showed no sign of relaxation as he pressed. "Do you know how he died?" At these words, my heart sank. Xiaxian actually intends to investigate Gu Yu's cause of death? The prince's death was bizarre. As if struck by a strange poison, he lost all 5 senses, became unable to care for himself. Then his internal organs were all tainted by the poisonous gas. They rotted and oozed pus. Infected, followed by his skin festering and decaying. Crystals formed on his bones, causing agony worse than death. He endured day and night, ultimately dying in excruciating pain. Xiaxian furrowed his brow and asked in a deep voice, "Have you identified the nature of this strange poison?" Imperial Physician Wei bowed his head. "I am afraid I have not been able to determine it thus far." Xiaxian cursed in displeasure and stormed out, flinging his sleeves behind him. Little did Xiaxian know that poison was already infiltrating his own body. However, the poison that afflicted Gu Yu originated from Chu Weiyue, spreading slowly and silently. His poison, however, would strike when the time came. After Gu Yu's death, Xiaxian immersed himself in state affairs, spending his days reviewing memorials in the imperial study. I had a rui cake made and sent it to him in the imperial study. But the eunuch stopped me at the door. "Your Highness, you must urge His Majesty to take care of his health." The moment I pushed open a door, Xiaxian's memorials came flying at me. He coughed once, his voice angry. "Who dares open the door and let in light? Drag them out and behead them." "Your Majesty, it is your consort." Xiaxian said nothing more, silently allowing me to enter. I walked to his side and set down the rui cake. "Your Majesty, you are weary. You should rest your eyes." Xiaxian turned his face toward me. His handsome features were dull and pale, his eyes bloodshot. He closed them wearily. He murmured, "Empress, lately I keep dreaming of the day we first met." "Your Majesty," I replied, "we've known each other for 7 years. Even if everyone else turns away from you, I will hold your hand for the rest of our lives." I took his icy fingers in mine. Xiaxian lowered his head, pressing a tender kiss to the back of my hand. The tender moment was interrupted by the Chamberlain's report. "Your Majesty, the Minister of Justice requests an audience." Xiaxian's gaze swept the room, his dangerous stare settling on me. He had long suspected my relationship with Gu Yu. He had long ordered the junior minister of the Supreme Court to investigate discreetly. After the junior minister approached, he first performed the ritual bow. Then his gaze settled upon me, implied that court affairs were not my place to witness. "Your Majesty, this servant shall withdraw first." Just as I was about to carry away the rui cakes from the table, someone suddenly grasped my hand. "It matters not." With Xiaxian having spoken, the junior minister could say no more. The junior minister presented the evidence directly into Xiaxian's hands. "Your Majesty, this humble servant has uncovered the truth." The junior minister's gaze fell upon me as he murmured softly, "The Empress and the Prince have no connection whatsoever. The one truly connected to the Prince is Consort Chu." Now, the conspiracy revealed in Chu Weiyue and Gu Yu's letters was fully exposed. After Gu Yu's death, when the junior minister went to confiscate the estate, He found their secret correspondence hidden in a secret compartment in the study. Every stroke of Chu Weiyue's writing had been treasured with utmost care by the deeply devoted Guyu. Among them was a letter where Guyu, emotionally shattered, begged Chu Weiyue not to enter the palace as a consort, and evidence of Chu Weiyue using Guyu to poison him, colluding with the Chu family to frame me. The glaring proof lay before Xie Xian. Rage boiled within Xie Xian, his eyes blazing with fury. He clutched the letters and slammed them hard onto the table. Damn it! He sprang to his feet, his chest heaving violently with rage, his breathing becoming ragged. A metallic taste surged in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. I gasped. Your Majesty! Leaning against me, Xie Xian gently wiped the blood from his lips with his fingertips, his expression cold and thin. I'm fine. Help me to the cold palace. It seemed Xie Xian was now eager to deal with Chu Weiyue. So be it. I've been waiting impatiently for this. The moment we reached the cold palace, Chu Weiyue's eyes lit up. She stumbled forward, her eyes glistening with tears, yet unable to conceal her joy. Kneeling before Xie Xian, she pleaded urgently, Your Majesty, you've come to bring this humble servant back to the palace, haven't you? Lifting her small face, a tear rolled silently down her cheek. You must have uncovered the truth and come to bring me back, right? I never miscarried. Never. Xie Xian's hand shot out, striking her face with a backhand slap. The blow drew blood from the corner of her mouth. She froze, staring at Xie Xian in disbelief. Why won't you believe me? Xie Xian snatched the letters from the eunuch's hands and hurled them all at her face. He shouted furiously. Look at them! How can I possibly believe you? Letters scattered across the floor, leaving Chu Weiyue no time to pick them up. She frantically grabbed one letter, her body trembling as shock flooded her eyes. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! This servant and Guyu are innocent. Even now. Chu Weiyue felt uneasy uttering these words. Her trembling fingertips clutched the letter tightly. The despairing Chu Weiyue's eyes grew ever more intense, a sight that filled me with delight. Xie Xian pinched her cheek, sneering. Innocent? You and Guyu plotting to kill the Empress is innocent? Pushing the Empress into public disgrace is innocent? This time you targeted the Empress, next. Will it be this emperor? Chu Weiyue shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. You plan to conspire with Guyu to assassinate me. To dethrone me. No. No. No matter how Chu Weiyue protested. It was futile. No one would listen. No one would believe her. Xie Xian's rage reached its peak. His face turned deathly pale as he lashed out, slapping Chu Weiyue across the cheek. Bring the poisoned wine. With that, he ordered a eunuch to bring the poisoned wine. Xie Xian had no strength left to deal with her. He boarded his palanquin and returned to the palace. I remained behind, my gaze calm as I looked at Chu Weiyue. She scrambled over, kneeling on the ground and banging her head against the floor repeatedly. Sister! Sister! I beg you! Save me! Sister! I know I was wrong. Blood stained her forehead crimson. A pitiful sight. I waved my hand, signaling the servants to withdraw. Only she and I remained in the chilly chamber. My laughter rang out, bright and unrestrained, my heart brimming with boundless satisfaction. My dear sister, are you pleased? Everything you have, I gave you. At these words, Chu Weiyue's pupils contracted sharply, her expression instantly turning icy. The fertility potion you drank, I personally prescribed it. The child in your womb was conceived by my hand. I laced your medicine with a concoction to mimic a miscarriage. And that fetus? Even at full term, it would have been lost anyway. And you know what? Even Guyu, the one who loved you most, I killed him myself. I snorted derisively, a glint of tears flashing in my eyes. In my past life, I refused to fight them. Yet they struck when I was unprepared, plotting my death. Do they even deserve to be my opponents? Shock flashed through Chu Weiyue's eyes. Her gaze widened in terror. You. It was all you. Staggering to her feet, she rushed out like a madwoman. I'll tell the Emperor. You're the one responsible for everything. Your Majesty. I was framed. The cold palace is filled with my people, who would listen to her cries. I grabbed her hair and yanked her back from the doorway. Gripping her jaw, I forced the poisoned wine into her mouth. Setting down the wine cup, I slapped her face. Whether he believes it or not, you'll both die anyway. Guyu awaits you in the underworld, go reunite with him first. As for Xia Xian, if you wish to explain, then wait for him there too. Once he descends, you can tell him in person. My plans extend far beyond this. Chu Weiyue slumped over the table, frantically gagging at her throat. I don't want to die. Death was not her choice. I ordered Bai Shuang to strangle her inside, eliminating any future trouble. The moment the door closed, I saw Chu Weiyue's cheeks flushed crimson from suffocation. That gaze of endless despair, truly vivid. Shortly after, Xia Xian ordered the execution of the entire Chu family. The fall of a distinguished chancellor to such a fate sent shockwaves through the imperial court. Xia Xian's temper grew increasingly volatile and uncontrollable. He feared light, suffered sleepless nights, and his mood darkened to the extreme. Everyone in the palace lived in constant fear. Within a single month, Xia Xian ordered the execution of 10 maidservants and 8 eunuchs. All were put to death for trivial matters that displeased him. In his eyes, human life was as worthless as grass. To prevent his outbursts, I often offered him calming incense. Thus, Xia Xian cherished my presence above all. He would lean against my shoulder, his gaze filled with deep affection. Zhao Zhao. I was wrong. My fingertips brushed his gaunt cheek as I smiled gently. Your Majesty. Where did you go wrong? He clasped my fingers, lowered his head, and murmured, Zhao Zhao. I shouldn't have trusted Chu Weiyue. I shouldn't have favored her and disappointed you. It turns out, from beginning to end, the only one who could stand by my side and trust me was Zhao Zhao. Zhao Zhao. We've known each other for years. Yet it's been so long since I last spoke with you properly like this. All these years, I've wronged you, neglected you. I listened quietly to his murmurs, speechless. I longed to hear mother call me Zhao Zhao, to hear father call me Zhao Zhao, but never these 2 words from his lips. I loathed them, feared they would bring me bad luck. From that day on, Xia Xian constantly pulled me into conversation, apologizing and recounting our shared memories. His health deteriorated further, leaving him often confined to his sickbed. He vomited blood frequently, the color shifting from bright red to black. The imperial physicians paced frantically, prescribing one remedy after another, all to no avail. That day, Xia Xian embraced me tightly from behind. His jaw rested on my shoulder, gently rubbing against it. Zhao Zhao. Why don't you call me anymore? I smiled softly and whispered. Your Majesty. What are you saying? His voice held inexpressible grievance, a mix of sorrow and the tender confessions of a youth. Why don't you call me husband? Why don't you call me scion? I turned to face him, my gaze meeting his, staring into his lifeless eyes. I smiled gently. Does your Majesty even know my name? He froze. Zhao Zhao. And my full name? Xia Xian stared blankly for a long moment. His eyes flickered. He pressed his lips together and evaded. Zhao Zhao. I took medicine. I can't remember anyone. No. I never gave him any medicine that would cloud his mind. He wasn't forgetting, he was deliberately forgetting. In his eyes, I was his lawful wife, the empress, the mother of princesses and princes, and simply Zhao Zhao. But my mother and father never forgot my name. I am Shinjin Zhao, the youngest and most cherished legitimate daughter of the Shin family. Over the next few days, Xia Xian's illness grew critical, and he could scarcely keep down even basic meals. That night, lying upon the imperial yellow bed, his gaze fixed intently upon me. Zhao Zhao. Call me husband, will you? I snorted derisively, no longer concealing my loathing for him. Looking down upon him from above, I asked coldly, what wife would poison her own husband? Yes. Poison. My poison never touched him, it was meant for the late consort Chu. Xia Xian's eyes widened in utter exhaustion. He kept staring at me, reaching out to grab me, but I dodged his grasp. Your Majesty, haven't you noticed your health deteriorating daily? Ever since you took pleasure with Chu Weiyue, you fainted in the academy, then coughed up blood, developed photophobia, and suffered muscle contractions. Chu Weiyue carries a deadly poison. Her miscarriage was a sham, I poisoned her. Guyu's fake death potion was my doing too. I laughed aloud, my eyes filled with desolation. Even your union with her was a mistake. I laced her poison so you'd suffer its effects together. Isn't that amusing? Imperial power, court affairs, the harem, I want it all. Xia Xian struggled to rise, but I pressed him back down. His lips trembled as he roared. Shen. Jin. Zhao. I blinked innocently and asked softly, Your Majesty, may I still call you husband? He kept calling my name, over and over, until, finally, he closed his eyes in bitter resignation. I stepped outside, weeping uncontrollably as I cried out, His Majesty has passed. Our youngest son, Xia Weiran, was still too young, so I drew sharp features on Yunhe's face, dressing the still stunted girl in men's attire to take Weiran's place on the throne. Whenever Yunhe attended court, she wore the imperial crown, its jade bead pendant obscuring her face. With most of her features hidden, her true appearance remained unseen. I assisted Yunhe in governing the realm. She proved quick-witted and perceptive, grasping matters instantly. Weiran, however, had little interest in state affairs. He devoted himself to music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, while indulging in cat play and cricket fighting. Over 5 consecutive years, Yunhe grew increasingly radiant with the aura of an empress, every gesture exuding an air of nobility. During her reign, I reformed numerous political abuses. Women were permitted to attend court sessions, and men were forbidden from taking multiple wives, establishing the practice of monogamy. Though many ministers in the court harbored discontent, under my absolute authority, no one dared voice dissent. Thanks to my diplomatic skills, our nation maintained peaceful relations with neighboring states, and no wars ever threatened us again. But then, on the same day, both my mother and father passed away. From that moment on, no one called me Zhao Zhao anymore. 5 years later, Weiran decided to ascend the mountain to study medicine at the Chaoyan sect. Yet, just before Weiran was to leave the palace, Yunhe's true identity was exposed. Court officials rushed to present themselves before her. How could a woman rule? Where is our dynasty's dignity? The late emperor passed away 5 years ago. Has Princess Yunhe been reigning as emperor all this time? Yunhe stood in the center of the hall, her back straight and defiant. Though only 10 years old, her presence rivaled any present. She demanded, why can't a woman be emperor? Based on a single letter from Regent Guyu, you intend to execute me with your own hand? Throughout history, where have women ever ruled as emperors? This is not precedent, but an exception. Your actions deceive loyal ministers and break the people's hearts. Yunhe narrowed her eyes, her expression deeply displeased. Why can't a woman be emperor? The empire and its people come first. What does it matter if the ruler is a woman? Women are no less capable than you. At 5 years old, I surpassed the sons you painstakingly raised. You train boys to be generals, ministers, and historians. Must women be confined to being wives, mothers, slaves, and maidservants? Yunhe's words left the ministers speechless. Yet they stubbornly insisted the princess could not ascend the throne. Emerging from the rear of the hall, I heard Yunhe's words clearly. My gaze swept across the assembly, meeting only eyes filled with fear and complexity. Yunhe stood beside me, bowing respectfully. Your Imperial Majesty greets the Empress Dowager. The ministers immediately knelt in homage. I did not permit them to rise, intending them to hear my words while kneeling. 5 years under the regency, our nations have enjoyed peaceful relations. Since then, our borders have known no war, and our people have lived in contentment and prosperity. Why then are their hearts so cold? Your wives and daughters are confined within the walls of your grand residences, bound to obey your every command. These are not wives, nor daughters, they are your slaves. Now, women may perform in the streets. Women may hold office. Women may even take up arms as generals on the battlefield. They are fierce warriors, cunning strategists. In what way are they inferior to you? I am the Empress Dowager. Yunhe is the emperor. If you can present a single instance of wrongdoing by Yunhe during his 5 years of rule, I shall willingly step down. Yunhe and I have poured our hearts and souls into governing for the common people, never committing any grave errors. As Regent Empress Dowager, my methods grew increasingly firm. Finally, against all opposition, I elevated Yunhe to become an empress of her generation. Thus, I fulfilled the lifelong aspiration of my later years. The end.